On May 4th, the skies over Gaza lit up like never before. In a bold and brutal airstrike, the U.S. Air Force launched a devastating attack that obliterated a Hamas base suspected of being central to ongoing terror operations. This was no ordinary strike. This was calculated, precise, and overwhelmingly powerful. It sent a thunderous message across the Middle East. Hamas never saw it coming, and now the world is watching closely. What sparked this sudden escalation? What intelligence drove this mission? And more importantly, what happens next? Stay tuned, because this is the inside story of the day the U.S. Air Force turned Gaza into ground zero.
Well, Nastasia, once again, we're seeing airstrikes just lit up the skies across the Gaza Strip.
It all began with whispers from the intelligence community. Over the past several weeks, classified surveillance had picked up unusual movement in the northern Gaza Strip. Weapons shipments, militant traffic, and encrypted communications all pointed to one chilling reality.
Israeli missiles have destroyed the intensive care unit and surgery department of the only hospital still functioning in Gaza City.
Hamas was preparing for something big. The base in question had become a hive of activity, a strategic hub where weapons were stockpiled, training sessions were held, and leaders coordinated potential attacks against U.S. allies in the region. And the U.S. Air Force was listening. Behind closed doors, inside secure command centers, American intelligence officers worked around the clock, piecing together data, satellite images, and intercepted chatter. Every bit of information confirmed what many feared. This Hamas facility wasn't just a threat, it was a ticking time bomb. So the call was made. On May 4th, under the cover of darkness, U.S. F-22 Raptors and MQ-9 Reapers launched from multiple positions across the region, converging on the Gaza base with a mission that was clear and non-negotiable: neutralize the threat.
The Israeli military says they are currently conducting extensive strikes in Gaza.
The missiles hit their mark with chilling precision. Explosions rocked the facility, sending shockwaves through the nearby areas. Entire structures collapsed within seconds. The facility, once bustling with Hamas activity, was turned into a crater of rubble and flame. Military analysts described the damage as catastrophic, and for Hamas, it was a direct blow to both morale and capability.
As you can hear now, the raids are directly targeting the tower.
But this strike wasn't just about destruction. It was strategic. It dismantled critical infrastructure used by Hamas to plan and launch attacks. Key leadership figures are believed to have been present during the airstrike. While confirmation is still pending, U.S. officials have stated that high-value targets were likely neutralized. The aftermath was immediate and intense. Across the globe, headlines lit up. Major news agencies reported the strike as the most significant U.S. air operation in Gaza in years. Some praised the precision and timing, while others raised concerns about escalation. But inside the Pentagon, the message was simple. This was a response to imminent threat. Hamas had been pushing boundaries for too long, and the U.S. just pushed back hard.
We're going to direct the camera now towards the explosions.
This wasn't a lone act of retaliation. This was part of a broader effort by the United States to restore deterrence in a region that has seen rising instability in recent months. And it was a reminder to hostile actors, whether in Gaza, Tehran, or beyond, that the U.S. Air Force is not to be provoked. Experts say this strike represents a major shift in American posture in the Middle East. For years, the U.S. has preferred targeted counterterrorism efforts and joint operations with allies. But May 4th's strike showed a different side, a willingness to act unilaterally and with overwhelming force when necessary. According to sources within CENTCOM, the mission was authorized at the highest levels and executed with minute-by-minute oversight. Every detail, from wind conditions to civilian proximity, was analyzed to ensure surgical precision. In the words of one high-ranking U.S. official, "We gave Hamas every chance to stop, every chance to stand down. They chose escalation, and now they've paid the price." But will this be the end of it? Likely not. Hamas is known for its resilience and retaliation. However, this strike significantly crippled their operational capacity in the short term. Their weapons supply has been disrupted, command chains have been broken, and their safe zones, gone. Meanwhile, Iran, a known sponsor of Hamas, is watching carefully. With its own network of proxy forces throughout the region, Tehran now faces a critical decision: escalate or back down. And that's exactly what US defense officials hoped this strike would achieve. Not just destruction, but deterrence. Reactions from world leaders have been swift. While US allies like the UK, France, and Germany backed the operation, calling it a necessary measure against terrorism, others, including Turkey and Qatar, have condemned the strike, warning that it may fuel further instability in Gaza.
Yeah, it's absolutely, the situation has been overwhelmingly very desperate for families being trapped underneath the scale of Israeli attacks that unfolded the city of Khan Yunis over the course of the past 24 hours.
The United Nations has called for restraint on all sides, urging both Israel and Palestinian factions to avoid spiraling into open conflict. But the truth is, May 4th changed everything. The line has been drawn and crossed. On the ground in Gaza, the scene was chaotic. Emergency crews scrambled to contain fires and search for survivors. Local sources described the strike as the most powerful scene in years, with some comparing it to the early days of past Israeli operations. But this time, it was the US pulling the trigger. Hamas's official statement called the airstrike an act of war, vowing revenge. But analysts argue that the group may not have the resources or strategic leverage to immediately retaliate, especially after such a crippling loss. Meanwhile, the US isn't backing down. Surveillance drones continue to circle the region, and American forces across nearby bases remain on high alert. Naval assets in the Mediterranean have repositioned, and Patriot missile batteries have been activated as a precaution.
It's been another night of bloodshed in Gaza as the Israeli military targeted tents sheltering displaced Palestinians. The latest strikes have killed at least 23 Palestinians.
This operation, codenamed Iron Dagger, is not expected to be a one-off. Sources suggest that a list of secondary targets has already been prepared, and future airstrikes may follow if Hamas attempts to regroup or retaliate. Retired Air Force Colonel Mark Jensen explains, "This isn't about punishing Hamas, it's about resetting the playing field." They've grown comfortable operating in the shadows, using civilian infrastructure as cover. But now they know, the US is watching. And when we hit, we don't miss. And that's exactly what happened on May 4th. Hamas made a calculated gamble. They thought the US wouldn't respond, that the world's attention was elsewhere. They were wrong. As the dust settles, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. When the US Air Force is unleashed, nothing is safe. The message to America's enemies is clear. Threaten peace, sponsor terror, build your bunkers. But when the time comes, the sky will open up and justice will fall from above. This is the new reality, and the world is watching. But beneath the headlines and military briefings lies a more complex and sobering reality: the human cost. Though the strike targeted militants, civilian casualties have been reported. In densely populated Gaza, the line between militant and civilian infrastructure is often blurred. Residential buildings near the blast radius sustained damage, and humanitarian groups are now calling for an international investigation into the full scope of the impact. Aid organizations on the ground have begun mobilizing, struggling to get medical supplies and personnel to the affected zones. With roads destroyed and power grids disabled in parts of northern Gaza, relief efforts face major logistical challenges. Doctors Without Borders, the Red Crescent, and local Palestinian groups are pleading for safe access to treat the wounded and deliver aid. These developments highlight the fragile balance the US and its allies must strike, crushing terror networks while avoiding the perception of indiscriminate force. While the Biden administration maintains that the strike was justified and carried out with surgical precision, critics warn that the fallout, both literal and political, could push Gaza even deeper into crisis. In Washington, debates are already underway. Lawmakers across the aisle are asking tough questions about oversight, long-term strategy, and regional consequences. Some are demanding briefings on how this fits into broader US policy in the Middle East, while others argue that the strike was not only justified, but overdue. Meanwhile, the international stage is shifting. Russia and China have both weighed in, with Moscow calling the strike a reckless provocation and Beijing urging for mutual restraint. Their statements underscore the global implications of America's actions and hint at how this single event could reshape diplomatic alignments. Still, despite the storm of reactions, one thing is clear. Hamas has been dealt a significant blow. Whether that blow will lead to lasting peace or ignite further conflict depends on what happens next. In Gaza's streets, in Washington's war rooms, and in diplomatic chambers around the world. For now, all eyes remain on Gaza. The dust hasn't settled. Not fully. And with tensions simmering just below the surface, the next move could define the future of the region for years to come.